What's going on, guys? Billy here, and I've lived in the city of Philadelphia for about 4 years now, and I've also been uploading to my YouTube channel for, I'd say, a little under 4 years, so a lot of the drone footage seen in my cinematic videos and in my tutorial videos, as well as a lot of the photos seen on my Instagram page are shot here in the city of Philadelphia and in the surrounding areas. Now, because of this, it's led to a lot of people on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook to ask me where are some of the best places to fly in Philadelphia. So what I wanted to do in today's video is go over the best places to fly in the city of Philadelphia. Now, as a brief overview, like a brief summary of the city, I'll start off with probably the most important thing to note, and that is airspace. And you might think to yourself, just looking at this map, that most of the area of the city is covered by the Philadelphia International Airport located down there in the south portion of the city. But the good thing is most of the spots that you want to fly with the really cool structures and the really cool points of interest are completely and totally outside of the controlled airspace, and some of them are just on the outer rim, so you might need to file for a length within Kitty Hawk or within AirMap. There's also an airport up in the northeast portion of the city, but we're not going to be flying around that, so we don't really have to worry about that. Now, in terms of like bystanders and in terms of law enforcement, I have never had any issues flying in the city of Philadelphia, literally whatsoever. People have not given me crap for it. Law enforcement have never told me to land my drone, I can't fly here. Whenever I've encountered them, they've actually been really cool. They've asked questions and they've just been very inquisitive in general. So in terms of airspace, we're pretty much clear. In terms of bystanders, we're good. And in terms of law enforcement, we're also good. So that pretty much checks off all the boxes of a really great place to fly your drone. Now, the next thing I want to address is the custom map that I've created for this video specifically that shows all of the areas that I'm going to discuss in this video. So it kind of defeats the purpose of even going on and talking any more about these spots, because you can just look at that map I've created and then go and find out where you want to fly. But I do encourage you guys to stick around because I'm going to be sharing with you guys some information I've learned from flying at these spots dozens of times, whether it be parking, whether it be a great spot to fly, as well as some things that you might need to look out for. All right, so jumping right into things here, the first place to fly in the city of Philadelphia on my list is Race Street Pier, which I have to say is probably my personal favorite. It gives you access to a whole lot of stuff to shoot from one central point. You pretty much want to fly right here from the end of Race Street Pier, and you can find parking along Christopher Columbus Boulevard, although that could be a little bit tough. There are some parking lots around, but I would say find some street parking if you can. Now, in terms of what you want to shoot in this area, my personal favorite is, of course, the Ben Franklin Bridge. You can also shoot the skyline that's sort of a little bit further away. So if you had like an Inspire 2 and you put a 50mm lens on whatever camera you're using, you could get a really good shot and bring that skyline closer to the image. Now, also, you can shoot the Battleship, New Jersey, which is a little bit further south down the Delaware River. It is a haul. I'd say it's probably about a quarter mile away if my memory serves me right, but that is another cool thing to fly down to and shoot some photos. And there's also the opportunity of shooting some ships passing underneath, some larger cargo ships. I've gotten some really cool action moving up and down the river. I've also seen some little tugboats. Those are kind of fun to chase around. And of course, this is where my favorite shot has originated that I've gotten to date, and that is following the train across the Ben Franklin Bridge. That is the Patco line of trains going back and forth from the city of Philadelphia over to Jersey. It goes on either side of the bridge, but I find that I'm always shooting the one that goes from Philly over to Jersey just because that's the side of the bridge that Race Street Pier is located on. Now, despite this being one of my favorite spots to fly in the city, it certainly isn't perfect, as there are a few things you need to look out for. The first of which is low flying helicopters, and that'll be a theme throughout this video as we see a lot of the spots that we're flying along the Schuylkill River and the Delaware River. Over those portions and those bodies of water, there's going to be a good amount of low flying helicopter traffic. I can say that most of it comes from the Coast Guard, and I think a little bit further down the Delaware River from Race Street Pier, one of the news stations has their helicopter located there, and I'll see that take off, loop up the Delaware River over the Ben Franklin Bridge. So those are some things to look out for, the low flying helicopters. And also, I got kicked out of Race Street Pier one time by the security because they thought I was flying without a permit from them directly to be shooting for like news and TV purposes. They thought I was like a full camera crew. I had my big Inspire case, so I understand. But if you ever get kicked out because they think you're shooting for commercial purposes, just fly right there from the street, right along the sidewalk. You'll get a good view view of the Ben Franklin Bridge, but the New Jersey battleship is going to be out of view. But regardless, that can be a good backup plan. Now, moving on to the second spot on our list, which is an absolute no-brainer. It's the Philadelphia Art Museum and Boathouse Row, both of which can be hit from the same spot, just on the end of the promenade next to the Fairmount Waterworks building. If you guys are looking for parking, there's a huge lot behind the Philadelphia Art Museum. It's free parking, it's a good area, it's fairly safe, so don't worry about leaving your car there. You can then walk over to that promenade area, and from that location, you can shoot so many different things. You've got the art museum, you can shoot the backside and the front side if you want to. You've also got Boathouse Row just a little bit further down. You get a really good view from where you're standing. I also like to fly the skyline. You can fly up the Schuylkill River, and you kind of have a lot of versatility. You can shoot it from further away, or you can get up and close as you stay over the river and don't fly over any cars, people, or buildings. And then also, I like to shoot this little waterfall just next to the promenade. It's cool to get in your frame. You can kind of shoot the waterfall and get Boathouse Row in the background. Some other shots that I've tried is like going up the waterfall and spinning around to see the skyline. I don't know. You guys can go ahead and take a try at whatever you want, but there's a lot to fly here. You can definitely burn through like 3 or 4 batteries. Now, in terms of things to look out for, there's really not all that much except for low-flying helicopters. Remember, when you're on the Delaware or the Schuylkill, you've got to make sure you're looking out for those helicopters. I've seen some Coast Guard helicopters fly at like 150 feet, so be careful. Now, moving on to the third spot on our list, we've got South Street Bridge, which is a very popular spot for photographers to go sit up their tripod and shoot photos of the skyline, but it's turned into one of my favorite spots to fly my drone from. Now, in terms of parking, you want to go to the parking garage just off of South Covington Avenue. You could fly off the top of that parking garage if you wanted to, but I find it easier to kind of get a closer view of the skyline from South Street Bridge itself. Now, some points of interest from this location is the skyline, of course, and you've also got Franklin Field over there near Penn, and you've also got the FMC Tower, which is located in West Philadelphia away from the rest of the skyscrapers in Philly. So there is a whole lot of stuff to fly from South Street Bridge, but there is a couple things to look out for, one of which is like you're flying from the sidewalk on the side of the street, so it is kind of busy right there behind you, and you do have a lot of foot traffic, so you just want to make sure that you keep your gear all together, you've got an eye on it so nobody runs off with your stuff, and you also want to be careful taking off and landing because it is a little bit busier, but once you get out over the water, you're totally fine. Also, as I've said for the previous 2, look out for the low helicopters, specifically in this spot because Penn is located right next to you. Like if you're looking at the skyline, it's located to your left, and sometimes they're bringing in patients on a helicopter, so they're flying very, very low. Just be careful. Now, moving on to the 4th spot on our list, we've got Eastern State Penitentiary, which I just want to say right off the bat really isn't my favorite place to fly. Like all these other spots that I've shown you, you can set up in one area and fly multiple things, but when you get here, you can kind of only fly the actual penitentiary itself. So you guys can park in the parking lot just west of the penitentiary, and you can also fly from there. So you kind of knock 2 birds out with 1 stone. You don't have to park somewhere and then walk somewhere else. You park and fly from basically the same spot. And in terms of points of interest, you've just pretty much got the Eastern State Penitentiary, and that's all. It's a very massive building, if you want to call it a building. I'd say it's a complex with multiple buildings. But in terms of like things to look out for, the one thing that really kills this spot is it's an NFZ built into DJI's fly-safe system. So you can't fly directly over top of the prison. I guess they still classify it as a prison, despite it being shut down for a very long time and now being basically vacant, abandoned when they're not doing tours or when they're not doing attractions like around Halloween. So while this is a good spot to fly and maybe you want to go to it once or twice, it certainly is not my favorite spot in Philly. Now, the next spot that I'm going to show you guys is sort of like a high risk, high reward spot to get some really great footage, but you're not going to have all that much room to stretch your legs. So the spot I'm talking about is the Convention Center parking lot. You can park here and you can fly from here. And some points of interest around the area are the William Penn statue, the skyline, as well as just City Hall in general. You have like a perfect 360 view of a lot of the tall buildings within Philadelphia, but you can't fly over people, you can't fly over traffic, so there's not really a whole lot you can do from this this spot. From the convention center parking lot, you can go straight up and shoot the William Penn statue and get some of the different skyline aspects in the buildings in the background. Another spot you can fly over is the convention center, which is kind of located just behind you when you're looking at the William Penn statue. This gives you some more freedom because the roof is massive and you're not flying over people, so that's a good spot to fly. But this is kind of a high risk area in terms of like things to look out for. I would just say that the streets, right? You don't want to be flying over people. You don't want to be flying over streets. And in terms of like security that are located there at the actual parking garage, they've never come up. They've never bothered me. A lot of people go up there to shoot photos. You can actually take photos with just a regular camera because it's such a great spot and you get so close to the William Penn statue. So flying a drone from there is really fun, but it is a little bit risky. All right, so now moving on to spot number 6 of places to fly in the city of Philadelphia, we've got the Please Touch Museum, which is located further out of the city. So now we're in West Philadelphia in Fairmount Park. And in terms of like parking and a spot to fly, I pull right up in front of the art museum and fly right from there. When it's closed, it's pretty much desolate. There's nobody in the area, which is great because you're not bothered. You've got a lot of room to fly around. There's not many cars, not many people. So this is a great place to just get out, stretch your legs and fly. In terms of versatility, there's not that much to shoot. Like we've just got the Please Touch Museum and you can kind of do some different things. Like you can shoot the dome, you can shoot the whole building, you can go a little bit higher and shoot the skyline or the river in the background. But in terms of things to fly, you've pretty much only got the Please Touch Museum. Now, in terms of things you need to look out for, there's not many low flying helicopters at all. I don't think I've ever seen any air traffic when I've been out there, but it's not necessarily in the best part of Philadelphia. So I'd say when you're flying, keep your head on a swivel, maybe go with a friend, go with a buddy and fly together. But I'd say that has got to be one of my favorite spots to fly in Philadelphia because the Please Touch Museum is beautiful. It really is historic. Now moving on, we're jumping from the west side of Philadelphia over to the south side of Philadelphia to fly the SS United States, which just like the Please Touch Museum has a ton of history. It is probably, I would say, my absolute favorite thing to shoot in the city of Philadelphia. Now, in terms of parking and in terms of a spot to fly, I pull right up to the Chick-fil-A parking lot. Sometimes I grab a bite to eat, but mostly I'm just parking there and flying from my car around the actual boat itself. You can also fly down to the Walt Whitman Bridge if you want to, but that's going to be my next spot. I've got a totally separate spot to fly. But if you kind of wanted to kill two birds with one stone, you could do the boat and you could also go down and fly the Walt Whitman. Now, in terms of things to look out for, right? As I've said, low flying helicopters along the Delaware. One thing you really need to be careful of is that low flying helicopter traffic, but also just like the Please Touch Museum, I'd say that this is probably in a worse area of Philadelphia. It's a spot where you certainly don't want to leave your car and your gear unattended. Just make sure you're going there with a buddy. Make sure you're maybe flying from your car, something that I often do when I'm flying in the city. And yeah, I'd say that this is one of my favorite spots to fly because the SS United States has so much history. You can fly that boat from so many different angles. It really just never gets old to me. All right, so I mentioned the Walt Whitman Bridge. It's just further down the river from the Ben Franklin Bridge, and I'd say it's nowhere near as nice, but it's still something cool to fly around. And while you can hit it from that Chick-fil-A parking lot, I'd much rather go down on the Jersey side to Proprietors Park, fly my drone from there. It gives you a much clearer line of sight of the actual bridge itself. So I like to park and fly from that park, and then pretty much from there, the only thing you can fly is the Walt Whitman Bridge. It is beautiful, it is fairly large, but I feel like sometimes the trade-offs of flying there outweigh the actual footage that I get. So that's right along the approach pattern of the Philadelphia International Airport. And these commercial airliners are so much higher than you, but that does add a certain risk level. And also because you're on the river, you've got low flying helicopter traffic. If you're in the city of Philadelphia, you've got to pay a toll to get back over from Jersey. So Walt Whitman Bridge kind of falls lower on my list of places to fly, but I figured I'd throw it in here because if you're new to the city and if you're visiting, it could be a cool spot to capture some footage and some photos. Now moving on to the 9th spot on our list, I've got to give a huge shout out to my buddy Steve for showing me this spot. This is the DELAIR Bridge and the Betsy Ross Bridge. I like to park and fly from the boat launch that is at the end of Derouse Avenue. And if you guys are having some trouble understanding like the streets I'm showing you, just take a look at the custom map I made in the description. That'll give you an exact pin as to where I'm talking about. So I fly from this spot and I park at this spot. It makes it very easy. And the DELAIR Bridge Bridge is one of the oldest train crossings between Philadelphia and New Jersey. In fact, it might be the oldest, but I don't want to say anything that I don't actually know. Either way, it's a beautiful bridge. The Betsy Ross Bridge is kind of meh. That's another thing that you can shoot. And then also, if you fly a little bit further down past the DELAIR Bridge, you can shoot the old Philadelphia Electric Company complex. It's really cool to get some top-down photos of that building because it's kind of in ruins. And there's also like a pier where it says Philadelphia Electric Company. That's another cool thing to shoot. I've gotten some really good photos of that. But the main center of attraction is the DELAIR Bridge. It's really cool. It goes up and down to allow boats to come through. So you can sometimes catching it go up, you can catch it coming down. And also, if you're lucky, you can catch a train going back and forth. But I've noticed the train schedule is very irregular and they don't come through very often. The thing that I really like about this place though is the fact that there's not a whole lot to look out for. Like, you're at the end of a very empty road. You're almost in the middle of nowhere. You do have the Betsy Ross Bridge, which is a little bit more active, but in terms of places to fly, this is really good. You're getting out of the city. You're in a really good area. You do have to go over the bridge to New Jersey to fly the DELAIR Bridge properly. But again, it's become one of my favorite spots to fly because you have so much room to kind of shoot. And there's so many things to shoot. So it's a great spot. All right, so now we're moving on to the final spot on this list. And even though it comes in at number 10, I'd say it's up there as like number 3 or number 2 in terms of my favorite spots to fly. And that is the Commodore Barry Bridge and Subaru Park, which is where the Philadelphia Union play. Now you can hit this from the end of Ferry Road. So it's on the Jersey side. I fly and I park right there in the same exact spot. So it makes things easy. And that road that you drive down, Ferry Road, is totally empty. It is a full straightaway. So you definitely can drive your car down there pretty fast, but also I've gotten some really cool tracking shots with my Skydio 2. I had the drone follow me as I drove down that road, and also I put the Mavic up above the trees, had that follow me down. So it's a really cool spot to fly your drone, maybe follow somebody on a motorcycle, follow somebody on or inside of their car. But once you get to the end, it opens up to a huge scene of just so much area to fly. You can shoot the Commodore Barry Bridge, you can shoot Subaru Park. There is so much room to fly. Again, this has got to be one of my, say, top 3 favorite places to fly, although I wouldn't necessarily consider this Philly. It's definitely south of Philly, but I just had to include it here in this list. I should also mention about that shot, even though I haven't gotten lucky, you can chase some of the boats that go up and down. I've seen some people on jet skis. I've seen larger cargo ships come through, so you can chase boats up and down. Of course, when you're on the water, that's probably one of my favorite things to do. And in terms of things to be careful of, there's really nothing. I mean, you're out in the middle of the nowhere, so be careful because like if you get hurt, you're not going to be able to just hit the hospital down the road. So be careful. Make sure you're probably with somebody because you are in the middle of nowhere. But again, it's got to be one of my favorite spots to fly. I'd say outside the city of Philadelphia. So yeah, guys, that pretty much wraps up this video. Those are 10 of my favorite spots to fly in and around Philadelphia. This is something I'm thinking about turning into a series and hitting different cities. It's going to be a really cool experience to travel to different places, showing the best places to fly your drone. So let me know if you think that that's something you would watch because it's something that I would definitely be inclined to shoot because I think it'd be fun. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. And as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.